tears are steadily flowing as the ratings are circling the pooper on the Morning John. What an embarrassment. What an absolute embarrassment. In the industry of cable news, it does not get more humiliating than being beaten by CNN. Now, to their credit, John Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, they have not achieved huge embarrassing failure status from a complete lack of effort. John and Mika, they're kind of like visionaries. They were paying close attention back in November when America rejected the woke fungus. They knew they needed a change. Back in November, after the Trumper defeated cackling Cam Harris in what normal people were calling a landslide, while the mainstream media mistakenly referred to it as a really close race. Once they saw the clear rejection of the woke fungus, John Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, they spent a romantic weekend at Mar-a-Lago. It was kind of like a love triangle that weekend. It was Johnny and Mika along with Donnie. Donnie was sitting up on his throne as Johnny and Mika were begging for his forgiveness. Now, at the time, ratings for the Morning John were in the pooper, along with ratings for damn near everything else on CNN and MSNBC. John Scarborough knew that he needed to change. He knew that he needed to relinquish his embrace of the woke wiener and transform the Morning John into a show that was more appealing to normal people. Mika Brzezinski, she knew that she needed to be the exact opposite of the Yentas on The View. Now, on paper, this was a brilliant plan. Oftentimes, it's human nature to want to attach yourself to the winner. Joey and Mika, they were kissing the orange ass, if that's even possible. Since oranges are round, I'm not entirely sure that they have an ass. But if they did, Joey and Mika, they were kissing it. They wanted to make the Morning John appealing to normal people. When normal people were drinking their coffee, they wanted them to be enjoying their coffee on the Morning John. But there was just one problem. One tiny problem. While this plan sounded good in theory, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, they overlooked one key factor as they spent their romantic weekend at Mar-a-Lago asking the Trumper how they could be more appealing to normal people. They overlooked their biggest obstacle: credibility. Even though John and his bazooka are pretending to be normal, no one believes them. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. This morning on the second channel, talked about the Dallas Cowboys trading for Joe Milton and how the mainstream media believes that Joe Milton is going to replace Dak Prescott. I know this is a difficult time of year for people covering the NFL. All you have is draft speculation, which is painfully boring and useless. I know NFL media is desperate for topics and content, but really? You expect me to believe that a 6th round draft pick who played one full season in college and has started a grand total of one game in the NFL, you expect me to believe that guy is going to replace Dak Prescott? Even though I don't think Joe Milton is going to replace Dak, I do think Dak's time in Dallas is running out. I explain why, so if you haven't already, head over to the second channel and subscribe. Headline at Yahoo: Morning Joe soars in the ratings war and doubles CNN's morning audience. First of all, doubling anything at CNN is far from impressive. If MSNBC doubled the ratings of Wolf Blitzer, woof, 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 it means that MSNBC managed to double nothing to almost nothing. Ironically enough, Yahoo failed to provide the actual ratings for the Morning John on MSNBC, although they did explain to their readers that Morning John is popular on Spotify. They were downloaded over 1 million times in the last 4 weeks. These numbers are amazing! Celebrate the butt bongo! According to Yahoo, ratings for The Morning John are up 18% when compared to the fourth quarter of 2024, which isn't all that surprising since, their ratings after the election were setting record lows. Normally, I rely on the U.S. television database for cable news ratings. Earlier this week, we were talking about ratings at CNN. I needed to find the most recent ratings for Caitlin Collins. Katie Woo! Katie Woo! Or as she is known at family reunions, Katie who? When I need ratings for Caitlin Collins or the American hero Scott Jennings, I am a real American, I can always rely on the U.S. television database to find these ratings. But for some reason, the most recent ratings available for The Morning John are from November 20th. I wonder why. I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that The Morning John can't draw flies to the fresh turd that is circling the John. Even though I can't confirm it, I will take Yahoo's word for it. There's not a doubt in my mind that Joey and Mika are doubling CNN's ratings. Hell, Fox News could air infomercials of the My Pillow guy and it would double the combined audience of CNN in prime time. But where things get embarrassing for The Morning John and for MSNBC in general, it's when you look at their ratings in the key demo. This is the demo that advertisers care about. No disrespect to my older viewers. Uncle Casey loves you guys, although I'm way too young to be your uncle. Either way, nephew, Casey still loves you. No disrespect to my older viewers, but advertisers, they are not targeting your demographic. I would imagine that advertisers assume that most older viewers are on fixed incomes. When you're on a fixed income and you're retired, you don't have the discretionary income that you had in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. So advertisers, they focus on two demos, 18 to 49, 25 to 54. In cable news, they specifically focus on the 25 to 54 demo. Low ratings in this demo is one of the excuses that MSNBC used to fire the Wicked Weave Joy Reid. During the first quarter of the year, when ratings for The Morning John were supposedly surging, Joey and Mika averaged 64,000 viewers in the key demo. Now, that number alone is bad enough. Joy Reid was averaging a similar number in prime time, and she is no longer cashing woke welfare checks. But what makes this even worse is the fact that CNN is outperforming The Morning John in the demo. CNN hasn't been competitive in morning television for years now. Hell, CNN hasn't been competitive on television for years. At 7 o'clock every morning, CNN airs something called News Central. Show is hosted by Sarah Sidner, Kate Bolduan, and John Berman. Who, and who? I know Chris Berman, but I've never heard of John Berman. And the other two? Katie and Sally? Forget about it. Their husbands probably roll over every morning and ask for their name. But even though they are unknown to 99% of the country as well as friends and family, this trio has somehow managed to beat The Morning John in the ratings. News Central on CNN. It averaged 73,000 viewers during the first quarter in the demo. This is the first time in 3 years that a polished turd on CNN has beaten the supreme turd in the ratings. The question is why? How did Joey and Mika get here? Now, in their defense, this has become a trend at MSNBC. Over the last couple of months, CNN has consistently beaten MSNBC in the demo. But things were supposed to be different for Joey and Mika. They traveled to Mar-a-Lago to confess their sins. They atoned for their sins by becoming targets of fake outrage from deacons at Woke United Methodist. They've even changed aspects of the show. Back in January, John Scarborough told The Hollywood Reporter that the Morning John was changing directions. Instead of flushing counterclockwise, the John would now flush in the opposite direction. He also wanted to implement topics that were outside of politics. Joey wanted to talk about music, movies, and Broadway. No wonder no one is watching this garbage. The music industry is dead, Hollywood's on life support, and people outside of New York City don't give a shit about Broadway. But the main change in direction was rejecting the woke wiener and trying to be more appealing to normal people. Obviously, that ain't working. I think what's ended up happening here is John Scarborough made the same mistake that CNN did several years ago. Remember when former CNN President Chris Licht tried to make CNN the network for normal people? Again, sounds great in theory, but it is very difficult to implement. Chris Licht fired some old white dudes along with the donut diva Brian Stelter, but he kept the people on television that were mostly responsible for sinking the Titanic. It's the same thing with the Morning John. You can't go from years of lies and propaganda. You can't go from 4 years of covering for Johnny B. Biden. You can't go from worshiping the intelligence of John Biden to calling him a Weisenheimer. The biggest problem for Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, they have no credibility. You have no credibility with the wanker spankers because you spent a weekend with the Trumper, and you have no credibility with normal people because you spent the last decade embracing the woke wiener. If you look at primetime ratings at CNN, there is one show that stands out. CNN Newsnight, the show hosted by Abby Phillip. For now, anyway. Now, why is Newsnight on the precipice of success? Because it features something different. It features something that you don't see on CNN or MSNBC. Scott Jennings. People relate to Scott Jennings because he's logical. He's a common sense thinker. By the end of the year, I think Scott Jennings will have the most watched show on CNN. If you look at the top 15 shows in cable news, 14 of the 15 spots are occupied by Fox News. Rachel Maddow is the only show outside of Fox on the list, and she is just barely clinging to it. America has abandoned these networks. America has abandoned the woke media. And for some reason, they are still resistant to change. As you can see with Joey and Mika, it's not always enough to change your mentality, or in their case, pretend to change. If CNN, MSNBC want to rebound, they need to change host. They need to feature people that America can trust. But anyway, give me your thoughts on this. The Morning John, beaten in the ratings by CNN during the first 3 months of the year. Do you think it's enough for Joey and Mika to change? Over time, do you think they can rebound, or is it too late? Should MSNBC consider replacing them with people that Americans can trust? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys later.